In the stillness of the night, a figure cloaked in darkness emerges, wielding a deadly scythe. This shadowy figure, the Grim Reaper, is a potent symbol of death that pervades cultures worldwide. But where does this figure originate? We begin our journey in ancient Greece, home to the earliest known personification of death, Thanatos. Thanatos, unlike the skeletal Grim Reaper, was depicted as a handsome winged youth. His wings, a symbol of his divine status, also served as a metaphor for the flight of the soul after death. He was neither feared nor reviled, but accepted as an inevitable part of life. Yet, despite his youthful visage, Thanatos was no less formidable. His touch could bring the end of life, silently and suddenly. This stark contrast between the ancient Greek Thanatos and the Grim Reaper we know today invites us to explore the evolution of death symbolism. From this winged youth in ancient Greece, let's trace the evolution of the symbol of death across cultures. Travel with me now to the sun-drenched lands of ancient Egypt. Here, in the land of pyramids and pharaohs, death was not seen as a final goodbye, but rather a fascinating journey into the afterlife. A journey guided by none other than the ancient Egyptian god of death, Anubis. Anubis is one of the most iconic figures in Egyptian mythology. Depicted as a man with the head of a jackal, he was the gatekeeper between the realms of the living and the dead. But Anubis was not a figure of fear. Rather, he was respected and revered as a protector of souls on their journey to the afterlife. In the cosmology of ancient Egypt, death was not the end of existence, but a transition from the physical world to a spiritual realm, a place where the soul could live eternally. This belief deeply influenced their death symbolism. It was not a symbol of finality, but of transformation and continuity. The process of mummification, for instance, was not just about preserving the body, but about preparing the soul for its journey. The intricate rituals, the careful wrapping of the body, the placement of amulets, all were guided by a profound belief in life after death. The Book of the Dead, a guide for the afterlife, was often placed with the deceased, providing spells and instructions for navigating the afterlife. Anubis played a crucial role in this process. It was Anubis who would weigh the heart of the deceased against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth, to determine the soul's worthiness for the afterlife. This ritual, known as the weighing of the heart, was a key part of the journey beyond death. So in the ancient Egyptian view, death was not something to be feared, but a journey to be prepared for. Anubis, with his jackal head, was not a symbol of terror, but a figure of guidance and protection on this journey. The Egyptians saw death not as an end, but a new beginning, a belief that influenced their death symbolism. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, a time of plague and pestilence. This era, steeped in fear and uncertainty, gave birth to the embodiment of death as we largely perceive it today, the Grim Reaper. A skeletal figure draped in a dark robe, its bony hand tightly clutching a scythe. This image is as haunting as it is iconic. But why such a chilling depiction, you might ask? Well, the Middle Ages were marked by one of the most devastating pandemics in human history, the Black Death. It was an era of immense suffering and loss, where death was not a distant possibility but a daily reality. The Black Death, also known as the bubonic plague, wiped out nearly 1/3 of Europe's population. In this backdrop of widespread death and despair, the Grim Reaper was born. The skeletal figure represents the physical decay our bodies undergo after death. The dark robe, shrouding its form, signifies the mystery and fear associated with the unknown realm of death. But the most striking feature is the scythe, a tool used by farmers to reap or harvest crops. In the hands of the Grim Reaper, it symbolizes the harvesting of souls, cutting the thin thread of life and marking the end of our mortal journey. This figure was not merely a symbol of fear, but also a reminder of the inevitability of death. It served as a stark representation of a reality people were living each day, confronting their mortality in the face of the relentless plague. The Grim Reaper was not just a symbol of death, but also a symbol of life's fleeting nature and the certainty of our own end. In the Middle Ages, the Grim Reaper became a constant companion, a shadow lurking in the background of every life, a chilling reminder of the transient nature of existence and the ultimate fate that awaits every living being. In the face of widespread death, the Grim Reaper emerged as a symbol of the inevitable end that awaits us all. Let's now take a journey to Mexico, where death takes on a very different form. In the heart of Mexico, amidst the vibrant colors and bustling life, lurks a figure of death quite unlike the ominous Grim Reaper we've come to know. Meet La Santa Muerte, a female deity who personifies death in this rich culture. Donned in a robe that can range from white to black and carrying a scythe much like her European counterpart, La Santa Muerte is a striking figure. But don't be too quick to draw parallels. While the Grim Reaper is often seen as a harvester of souls, a figure to be feared, La Santa Muerte is a figure of reverence and respect. She stands not as a symbol of the end, but as a guardian of the afterlife, a promise of safe passage from this world to the next. And her role extends beyond death. In Mexican culture, La Santa Muerte is often associated with healing and protection. She's seen as a powerful figure, capable of granting miracles and intervening in dire circumstances. It's not uncommon to find her image on amulets and in home altars, her presence sought in times of need. But why, you might wonder, would a figure of death be so revered? The answer lies in the Mexican philosophy towards death. Here, death is not seen as an end, but a part of life's cycle, a transition. And La Santa Muerte, as the embodiment of death, is a necessary part of that cycle. She's a reminder of mortality, yes, but also a symbol of life's fleeting beauty. So, while the Grim Reaper lurks in the shadows, feared and avoided, La Santa Muerte is embraced, her image paraded in the streets during the Day of the Dead celebrations. She's a testament to the Mexican belief that death is not to be feared, but understood, accepted, and ultimately celebrated. In contrast to the fear-inducing Grim Reaper, La Santa Muerte is a figure of reverence and respect. Next, we head to Japan, where death comes not as a single entity, but as many. In the rich tapestry of Japanese folklore, we encounter the Shinigami, often translated as death gods. These enigmatic beings, however, are not your conventional Grim Reapers. They are not always out to claim lives, nor do they symbolize the end in a traditional sense. Instead, they are depicted as complex characters, each with their own motivations and roles to play in the grand scheme of life and death. Shinigami are often portrayed as guides, leading souls to the afterlife. They don't necessarily bring death, but they ensure the natural progression of life to death occurs smoothly. Their existence is not about inciting fear, but rather about maintaining balance. The fascinating thing about Shinigami is their diversity. They're not cast from the same mold. Each Shinigami is unique, with individual personalities, motives, and even methods of operation. Some may be mischievous, others solemn, and yet others may even exhibit a sense of compassion. This variety mirrors the complexity and unpredictability of life itself. Moreover, Shinigami are not always seen as the villains of their tales, but are often painted as neutral figures, or even as protagonists. They are characters with depth, often grappling with their own existential questions and moral dilemmas. This portrayal disrupts the binary perception of life and death, suggesting instead a spectrum where both aspects intertwine and coexist. The concept of Shinigami also reflects Japanese cultural and spiritual beliefs, where death is not viewed as an end, but as a transition to another phase of existence. It's a cycle, a continual process of renewal and transformation, much like the changing seasons. So, the next time you hear the rustle of leaves or the whisper of the wind, remember the Shinigami. They're not just symbols of death, but reminders of the intricate dance between life and death, the continual cycle of beginnings and endings. The Shinigami remind us that death, like life, is complex and multifaceted. In the modern world, the Grim Reaper continues to evolve. No longer confined to the pages of ancient texts or the canvas of medieval art, this symbol of death has found a home in our contemporary culture. From the silver screen to the digital realm, the Grim Reaper continues to hold sway over our collective imagination, albeit in a form that's often quite different from its historical counterparts. Take, for instance, the world of cinema. The Grim Reaper has made several appearances, sometimes as a terrifying specter, sometimes as a sympathetic character. In the 1991 film Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, the Reaper, played by William Sadler, is even a source of comic relief, a far cry from the fearsome figure of yore. The literary world, too, has seen its fair share of modern interpretations. In Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, Death is not only a character, but a protagonist with a personality, complete with dry wit and a fondness for cats. Pratchett's Death often contemplates the nature of humanity, offering readers a fresh perspective on life and death. Video games have also embraced the Grim Reaper, often as a boss character to be defeated. The Castlevania series, for example, frequently features the Reaper as a formidable adversary, yet, even in this adversarial role, the Reaper is not simply a villain, but a complex character that adds depth to the gaming narrative. These modern depictions, while diverse, are not isolated creations. They are influenced by the historical and cultural depictions of the Grim Reaper, from the ancient Greeks' Thanatos to the Japanese Shinigami. Each interpretation adds a new layer to our understanding of this universal symbol, reflecting our evolving attitudes towards death and mortality. In this sense, the Grim Reaper serves not just as a symbol of death, but also as a mirror reflecting our own perceptions and fears. Whether we see it as a terrifying specter, a comic figure, or a complex character, it's clear that the Grim Reaper continues to have a significant impact on our cultural psyche. As our cultures evolve, so too does our symbol of death, the Grim Reaper. From the ancient Greeks to modern pop culture, the symbol of death has captivated us. This fascination is not accidental. It stems from a fundamental human experience, our awareness of mortality. This awareness manifests itself in myriad ways across cultures, shaping our stories, our art, our rituals, and our beliefs. Through this journey, from the chilling tales of ancient Greece across the sands of Egypt, to the depths of the Middle Ages, the vibrant folklore of Mexico, and the mystical tales of Japan, we've seen how the symbol of death has evolved. Each culture, each era, has its unique interpretation, yet they all share a common thread, a recognition of death as an inalienable part of life. In ancient Greece, death was seen as a winged youth, a gentle guide to the afterlife. In ancient Egypt, it was Anubis, the jackal-headed god, the protector of souls in their journey through the underworld. The Middle Ages brought us the Grim Reaper, a stark, skeletal figure, a stark reminder of the inevitability of death. Mexico's La Santa Muerte and Japan's Shinigami, while differing in their aspects, both reflect a nuanced understanding of death, not as an enemy, but as a natural part of our existence. Modern depictions have added their own layers, from the comic to the tragic, reflecting our ongoing attempts to comprehend and cope with the reality of mortality. So what does this all mean? It suggests that the symbol of death is more than just a cultural artifact. It's a mirror, reflecting our collective consciousness, our shared understanding of life's fragility, and the inevitability of our own end. It's a reminder of the cycle of life and death, a cycle that binds us all regardless of where we come from or what we believe in. Whether as a winged youth, a jackal-headed god, or a robed skeleton, the symbol of death reminds us of our own mortality, a universal truth that transcends cultures and time.